Alright, we're in Nangang, Taipei, in a friend's place. Again, this is a group of people that knew one another very well, so trash talk was all over the place, and we were drinking beer and whiskey as well. The blinds were 50, 100 Taiwan dollars, and later on went up to 100, 200, a little bigger than what we used to play. Now, normally as the stakes go up, players have better skills as well. But is that the case for this group of people? I'll leave that for you to decide. So the first hand, the 200 straddle was on. The cutoff opened to 500, and I folded 5 deuce suited on the big blind. The straddler 3-bet to 1200. The cutoff called, and the pot is now 2500. And the flop came Queen 8-6, 2 clubs. Under the gun, bet 1200, around half pot, and the cutoff called. The pot now is around 5,000. And the turn came the Jack of Hearts. Under the gun, the open raiser continued betting. He bet 4,000 this time. At this point, I think he had top pair, top kicker, or an overpair. And after thinking for a while, the cutoff called the 4,000. And the river came the 7 of spades, essentially a blank. And the under the gun went all in with this 11,900, pretty much pot size. Now let's take some time and think about what he might have. I know some people might play in this fashion, betting all 3 streets with just top pair and top kicker, and eventually going all in on the river. This is because those who bet all 3 streets and eventually going all in either have really strong hands on the board like queens, other sets, or maybe top 2 pair, or have nothing at all. They know a lot of people wouldn't buy their stories. So by betting all 3 streets and eventually going all in, one is polarizing his range and forcing the other player to turn his hand into a bluff catcher. So he can actually get maximum value from non-believing players with weaker hands. Facing such an aggressive play, the cutoff decided to eventually call. The under the gun showed ace-queen, so he did just have top pair, top kicker. The cutoff later said that he had king-queen offsuit. Also top pair, but a slightly smaller kicker. Essentially just a bluff catcher.
But what did Mr. Y have to say about this hand?
There is nothing to explain as this is the Xpark. Just a bunch of fish swimming around. Well, nice hand under the gun player. The next hand, straddle was on, and I looked down with pocket sixes middle position, so I opened to 500. The middle position plus 1 called. This was the same player from last hand who went all in on the river with just top pair and top kicker. Let's call him Mr. Cho. The small blind went all in with 1,300. I made the call, and all of a sudden, Mr. Cho decided to 3-bet to 3,000. Now this was weird. I knew he wouldn't just flat my 500 with 2 high cards and raise again. So I was most likely up against a pair, perhaps a bigger one, so I decided to fold. Now, since the small blind only had 1,300, Mr. Cho took back the extra money and flipped over his red aces. That's right, I escaped this ambush. And the small blind flipped over his queen 10 off. He just wanted to gamble since it was really short stacked. And the flop came queen 7-5. So the small blind hit top pair. The turn was a 4, but the river was a 10. So the small blind got 2 pair and took down the pot. Lucky me, and 2 bad for Mr. Cho. On to the next hand. Under the gun limped. The middle position opened to 400. I have ace-5 of clubs on the bottom and decided to call. The small blind, the big blind, and under the gun all called. So pot is already 2,000. The flop came 7-7-6, 2 clubs. The middle position continued betting. He bet 1,000, which is half pot. And I flipped a nut flush draw, so I called. And the small blind called as well. So the pot is 5,000. The turn came the king of clubs. It all checked to me. So it seemed to me like the open raiser best had a king and was planning to check call or was still on his draw. The small blind might have a 7, but I wasn't too worried. I wanted to give them a chance to improve, so I checked as well. But looking back, I probably should have bet small so they don't just get a free card on the river. The river came the deuce of diamond, a blank basically, so none of the draws got there. It all checked to me once again. I bet 2,500 and they all folded. I should probably have bet really small to get someone to call. Anyway, happy to take down the pot. For this next hand, I know the footage looks like it's from the 80s and it's incomplete, but it's a very exciting hand, so bear with me. So pre-flop action, straddle was on and the middle position opened to 600. There was one caller and the bottom 3-bet to 3,000. The middle position called the 3,000 as the late position, so there was already 9,000 in the pot, and the flop came 8-6 deuce with 2 spades. The middle position and the late position both checked. The bottom bet 6,000 into 9,000. The middle position called and the late position folded. The pot was already 21,000. The turn was the ace of spades, so the flush got there. The middle position checked once again, and this time the bottom checked as well. The river came the jack of diamond. Now the middle position decided to bet 15,000, and the bottom went into the tank. He eventually called because he thought the middle position wouldn't have a flush because he would need the ace of spades to call a 3-bet preflop, but there it was, the ace of spades on the turn, so he made the call. The middle position flipped over Jack 9 of spades. It was quite a gamble for him, but he eventually got there. He made his flush. And the bottom flipped over kings with the king of spades. Nice hand and congratulations to my man who took down a big pot. Starting this next hand, we upped the blinds to 100, 200. We all folded to Mr. Y, middle position +1. He limped. And the cutoff raised to 500. I folded my trashy hands on the small blind, but the big blind min raised it to 1,000. Mr. Y in middle position +1 called, and the cutoff called as well. So the pot was 3,100. The flop came Queen 5-4 rainbow. The big blind bet 2,000 into 3,100. Mr. Y called, and the cutoff folded. The pot was 7,100. And the turn came the 3 of diamond. The big blind now bet 7,000, which was pot size, and it didn't take too long before Mr. Y decided to go all in with this 16,000. Not after much thought, the big blind made the call and flipped over kings. In most cases, the big blind would have lost, but it's Mr. Y. And Mr. Y sadly flipped over ace queen off. He still had a lot of outs though. 3 aces, 2 queen, 4 deuces. But they did not come. Instead, river was the 3 of clubs. So big blind took down the pot. Well, gotta give credit to him for pushing all in with top pair tuck kicker on a Q high board in a 3-bet pot. Nice try, Mr. Y.
我觉得我应该回家。
I will see you very soon for part 2. Have fun, be safe, stay easy. Until next time. Leave a message, subscribe if you like.